Welcome back to Why Are We Like This, the podcast that treats Florida like the active crime scene it is. I'm your host, David Quinones, and I'm joined by my co-host, Tomas Kennedy. What's up, Tomas?
I'm a newly registered Democrat, just to vote for Angie, and I did yesterday. So
look at you, foreshadowing for our guests, who I will introduce in a moment. But first, if Tomas is here, that can only mean that we are also joined by our other co-host with 99% of precincts voting and reporting. He's your next Rockland County mayor. That's right. It's funny because I'm not even sure if Rockland County has a mayor. It's Gerald Doherty. Hey, Gerald.
No, we have a county executive who was, I think, third in command at the Baltimore Police Department at the time that The Wire was being made, to paint a picture of what type of a guy we've got up here.
Real Valchek situation, Stan Valchek situation. So no news and notes today because we have a very special guest who we want to jump right in with. Florida's primary elections, if you're listening to this, you probably know that they're in less than 2 weeks as of today. Tuesday, August 18th. Mark your calendars. Get ready. Today, we're honored to be joined by our guest who is taking a momentary respite from her surging Democratic primary campaign for U.S. Senate, shrugging off some spousal shade online and proving that, yeah, you can change a tire in a dress. It's possible. You know her as the 3-term state rep from Jacksonville who spent the past 6 years fighting against the rising tide of MAGA in the Sunshine State. And we know her as a returning guest and friend of the pod, Angie Nixon. Welcome back, Representative Nixon.
That was amazing. I need to take you on the road with me. Thank you for that awesome introduction.
Well, yeah, you should have me on the road with you, honestly, because I was a little worried about you stripping out that lug nut when I saw you jumping on that wrench when you were changing the tire. I was like, she's going to end up having to change her whole wheel. But you figured it out. You figured it out okay.
I've done that before. That was me taking it off. So, yeah, I don't, my arm strength isn't what it used to be. So I had to give it the full weight of my body.
Let's see Alexander Vindman do that. I want the big. You think you can change a tire?
Listeners, it's really worth it. Just keep a little can of WD-40 with your tire change kit. It comes in handy. Or you can work up a sweat like Representative Nixon did. I want to remind listeners. I'm going to remind them again at the end of this interview, but don't forget. I don't want to forget. I want to send folks over to angienixon.com. They can learn more about you. They can donate. They can find out how they can be part of the campaign and get involved in these last few weeks. But I want to get into your campaign and how that experience has been for you so far. But we are a news podcast, and the big news today is that in Michigan, in a Senate Democratic primary that isn't exactly the same as ours here, but has a lot of sort of aspects that rhyme and like similar contours. Abdul Al-Sayed, the progressive candidate, defeated moderate establishment opponent Haley Stevens. And I'm wondering, I know you've been busy on your own campaign. You probably haven't had a lot of time to focus on what's going on around the nation. But I'm wondering if you've paid attention to races like this and what, if anything, last night confirmed for you about like this moment that we're in right now.
Yeah, what it confirmed for me is that people are tired of the status quo. They're ready for change. They're ready for people who actually have been out in community and not just around campaign season. And they don't trust the establishment that much anymore. And so I'm super excited about our race. It is still an upward battle, but we are going to keep swinging until 7 p.m. on election night. Hopefully it's longer because people are waiting in line to vote on election night, right? But it's also showing that there is such a huge divide within the Democratic Party right now. And that is because people are just, again, as I stated earlier, people are tired of just the same old. And right now, the Democratic Party needs to decide like the direction that it wants to go in this next 250 years of our country. And I believe the direction that the people want it to go is towards them, the people, and away from these big corporations and these greedy billionaires. There's too many corporate Democrats in our party. Like, my husband jokes a lot, and he says, the Republicans and Democrats are the same. They're the two different wings on the same bird. And
Yeah.
What does that say about us that people think we are the exact same as Democrats as Republicans? Republicans who are attacking our right to vote, Republicans who are accepting money from the same people. They are jacking up our rents, the same corporate landlords, the same insurance companies that are pushing them to vote no on extending the ACA subsidies, the same insurance companies that don't want them to have Medicare for all, right? Like this is the problem right now. And so we need to make sure that we are putting forth the populist message and one of working families.
So, Rep, I wanted to ask you because you've obviously been thinking about running for a long time, and I know that because you told I was in the state legislature, not this session, but the last session, 2025. And I remember you pulled me into your office along with some other folks to ask us about what you thought, what we thought about you possibly running, among some other things. So you've been preparing this campaign and this run for a long time, and it shows. But how has it been running? As an insurgent, anti-establishment candidate this whole time in Florida.
Yeah. So I would say it wasn't last legislative session. It was this, this legislative session before last. It was, we talked during committee weeks of,
Yeah,
the
right.
2026 legislative session.
Yeah,
So they start in 2025. And I don't believe we were in the office. I believe we were outside of the office, like
right,
eating lunch or
right. Yeah,
something. Um, because I don't talk politics in in office
yeah,
settings because they have cameras around me and they're trying to follow me and trying to catch me up on stuff. But I was having conversations with people and traveling
right.
across the state. I launched an exploratory committee because I was feeling like I was being called to do something else. But what I would say is it is so frustrating that people want Black women's labor, but not their leadership. Especially especially in the South. I have been called and asked to do things when people were too afraid to speak out by some of these same people who I am witnessing turning their backs on me and saying, I'm not electable. He's more electable than me. And I just, it's very disappointing because this man does not talk to people. He does not go into communities. He actually runs away from folks. And he doesn't know what Floridians are up against and what they've been facing. And also, he's not a working class dude. He's a millionaire that also has talked about having to pay half of his dad's rent. Hell, I wish I could pay half of my mama's mortgage or whatever, or my dad's rent. But no, I'm dealing with these rising costs, being a working mom with my husband who owns a small business, and my husband has seen a hit in his business because he's a landscaper, and people are trying to start cutting their yards now or letting them overgrow because they don't have the money for his services. And so it's just very frustrating to see what's been happening. I've been called inexperienced. I've been called ghetto and loud and boisterous. And this is not just by Republicans. This is actually by people within the party.
So let me. You bring up Vindman, right, and the fact that he runs away from people. And David and I, last weekend, we were either naughty or good, depending on your perspective. But we, but no, but in all seriousness, we went up to a Democratic Party event here in Florida, and we asked a very, I think, fair question, and we asked it very civilly, David. Well, you did, but David asked Vindman, "Hey, why won't you debate your primary opponent?" And David actually held up a mailer that he got from Vindman saying, "I'm a fighter." And David was like, "If you're a fighter, then you can't debate your primary opponent. How are we going to know about your ideas, what you think, how you do in these settings if you're, up to taking on Ashley Moody, the Republican candidate in the fall?" And he basically vomited a bunch of words. I mean, you can watch the video, listener, and make up your mind, but he vomited a bunch of words, did not commit, and then a staffer came in to like rescue him, and he ran away. Even though we're talking to him very calmly and respectfully, but Angie, what is going on? Why won't he debate you? How can you tell us about that process of trying to get him to just do the basic,
I mean, he doesn't.
events that a campaign requires?
He's not a good candidate. He's not. He does not know.
Yeah.
He does not know the issues that Floridians are facing. Every time he's usually asked questions, he goes back to his military experience. And yes, thankful for his service, but that is not all a senator is about, right? Like, a senator does not just focus on foreign affairs and military. A senator focuses on domestic issues. That is what Americans care about the most heavily. Like, they care about bread and butter issues. They're working harder than ever and they're still struggling to get ahead. And he can't speak to that. Number one, because he's not experienced it right now, right? And then secondly, like, he does not know the people of Florida. He has to literally be briefed on what's going on here in Florida. I don't have to be briefed. I've lived it each and every day. And so also, it I just it's just wild. It's just wild. He doesn't know. He doesn't know what's going on. That's all I can say is just he does not know.
And do you think there will be a debate before August 18th, or it's just not happening?
Absolutely not. He doesn't want me to, he doesn't want folks to know who his opponent is. There's a lot of people that still don't even know there's a race. There's a lot of people that don't even know who he is. I didn't know who he was until Nikki Fried told me, and I'm someone that's super plugged into politics, but I was more plugged into, some of the federal stuff, but more so like what's happening in the state and how I can help people. But there's a lot of people that have no clue who he is. There's still a lot of people who are learning about me. And so he does not want to increase my name ID. So no, he does not want to debate me. Plus, like, I'll tear him up. Like, I will debate him to the ground.
Yeah, it's funny because like a lot of your opponents' bona fides tie back to this like larger question of Democrats as they've made their identity over the last 10 years, that like this, like, forget about policy, forget about what we can do, forget about helping people. It's just about Trump. And it is, I fought Trump. And a lot of that kind of just falls into this like saving the soul of the nation narrative that, I mean, it's important. I think it's good to get past this Trump moment that our country and that the world is having. But what about having like a concrete platform and sort of standing against things and actually being able to outline and enunciate what the solutions are? It feels like that's what's missing, not just from his campaign, but a lot of those sort of moderate campaigns, right, Gerald? I know you and I were talking about this.
So I was talking to Tomas just before we jumped on this call. I'm on both the Alex Vindman and Angie Nixon campaign sites, just coming in as, hey, I'm going to be voting. I want to know what the candidates stand for. Alex Vindman has, I'd say, a little more than half a dozen statements of general campaign priorities, the first 5 of which basically fall into one of 2 buckets of affordability and corruption. And if you cut them in half, the spirit of his platform would basically be exactly the same. If you go to Angie Nixon's website, the very first campaign priority is to sign on to Medicare for all. You don't have to, like, right off the bat, a statement of, if I want to be a senator, here's the legislation in the Senate that I would like to push forward, co-sponsor, marshal forward. Whereas Alex Vindman's, whole shtick is pretending that the primary is already wrapped up. I'm moving on to Ashley Moody, who's this, terrible person, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I wanted to drill down on the party seeking candidates that fit a particular narrative, which is we have to defeat Trump because he's bad for the soul of the country, versus having a generative program that's good for the soul of the people. I wanted to put that to you, Angie.
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like I'm both, honestly. I just like throwing that out there, right? And
All right.
I I am I am perplexed at why they feel that I am unelectable. I think there is some racism in the party that needs to be addressed. You can't lean on the fact that a black woman has not been elected statewide when we got super, super close with like Andrew Gillum. That's the closest we've ever been when it comes to electing anyone statewide. Yes, Nikki Freed got elected, but she rode on the coattails of Andrew Gillum, and he got close due to his policies, and also I will say due to him being a black man, because black people were excited about voting for someone who was competent and had great ideas, right? And so I am competent, I have great ideas, but I am not someone who can be bought and paid for. And I think we need to talk about like the lobby for folks who support, what's happening over in Israel is a big thing and a big issue, as well as me being vocally agitational around Democrats accepting money from people who are causing our lives to be harder than what they should is also a problem for the establishment. And they just don't want to be checked. They don't want someone to go to Washington, D.C., who is going to push back on them and say, no, 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 we can actually afford Medicare for all because we're paying more than what we would be paying for Medicare for all right now as a government. And people are paying deductibles and co-insurance and co-pays while we're paying more for it. So we could actually save money and save people money, right? And so it's like they don't want me to be up there saying that because their campaign donors are these insurance companies. And so we need to send someone to Washington, D.C. who is going to be unapologetically bold about fighting back against these issues that are happening, like me, because, Donald Trump is a problem, but it's also Donald Trump's donors that are a problem. And I know that my primary opponent is saying that he doesn't accept money from corporate PACs, but he accepts money from billionaires that open up and donate to corporate PACs.
I was at Leadership Blue, which for the listener, this is like the Democratic Party gala that they do every year. I got a free ticket, so I went, and I was kind of shocked. I think you were there too, yeah. I was kind of shocked at how little the war was spoken about, right? Like the actual physical war that we're fighting in the Middle East is causing like an energy crisis. It was like, no, I think Maxwell mentioned it in his speech, Maxwell Frost, and nobody else, like at all. And I've noticed that in your language, you talk not just about the illegal war of aggression that we're fighting against Iran, which you talk about all the time. You also have talked about, what's happening in Gaza, the genocide of Palestinians. I mean, you actually introduced a ceasefire resolution that I think you and only Anna Eskamani voted on. A lot of your Democratic colleagues didn't vote on it, painfully, honestly. But you also talk about like the war against the poor, right? The war against immigrants, the war against our access to healthcare, and the war that we're actually like the actual physical wars, right? Why is it that no other candidates can't do that? Like, I'm not trying to get you to throw shade at other candidates or whatever, but your opponent certainly doesn't talk about this often. Other like candidates across Florida are not talking about this, and I just don't understand this reluctance to talk about an illegal war that's historically unpopular and that's like driving the cost of living and inflation across the board for Floridians and really across the country. So yeah, I just wanted to ask you about that because I just don't understand it.
I would say it goes back to campaign donors. It goes back to campaign donors. That's what it is. Who are these lawmakers beholden to? And they're worried about whether or not they're going to have the money to stay in office. I mean, it's shameful how much it costs to run campaigns. Like, look at what just happened in Michigan. I think they spent
Yeah,
did outside funding, was it like
it's like
$60
9 to
million dollars
1.
worth of outside funding? Right.
It was
I
I
think it
remember,
may
I
have
know
been
the
worse
ratio
than
was
that.
something like 9 to 1, and even in like in in Cory Bush's race, very similarly, it was like an 8 to 1 TV spend or something like that. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So I mean, folks are. It's shameful. It's tough to run campaigns, especially statewide. And so I'm struggling now with raising money. And so I understand it. If folks want to remain in power, remain in office, you got to raise money, and like they want it the easy way. But I'm not. I'm not trying to just get it the easy way. I'm trying to get it the right way, and it's going to be through the people.
This was something that came across the old transom a few days ago, and I wanted to get your reaction to. So I know you've been endorsed by a lot of folks during the primary. We don't put a lot of stock in individual endorsements on the show unless they're like larger unions, like SEIU, Working Family Party, National Women's Political Caucus, all of whom have supported you, by the way. However, you did snag a very key endorsement from the YouTube Kids creator, Miss Rachel, and I think that's a pretty big one. And I was wondering if you could talk about that, and also talk about just generally like the folks that are the kind of folks, because if you read through the endorsements of Angie Nixon, there's a narrative that emerges, so the kind of people that are supporting your campaign. So I was wondering if you could talk about that a little.
Yeah. So number one, that is the most favorite endorsement from that my 5-year-old thinks I have is Miss Rachel. Okay, the brightness in her eyes when she found out, and the smile she drew on her face.
Uh,
But the type of people that are endorsing me are people who like work in the community with other people, like who don't work and don't do the bidding of big business. They actually are trying to improve the quality of life of regular everyday folks. Like Miss Rachel is trying to make sure that our children learn to read and have empathy for each other. And she's also wants to stop the bombing and killing that's happening over in Palestine and Gaza. And you have, the working families party. Literally, they are the party for working families. They want people to get paid a living wage. They want people to have access to health care and access to a home, a roof over their head. They want people to be safe. And so these are the type of groups that are supporting me. And I have way more endorsements than my primary opponent. And that's because I've been here doing the work. And what is disappointing is that he's been here for 3 years. And I mean, people asked him, like, there were a few interviews that he did, and they asked him, like, what made you decide to run for U.S. Senate? And he was like, yeah, I saw what was happening recently, and I decided to get in the race, and because we need to stop all these attacks. And I'm like, sir, we've been getting attacked like for a long time, especially here in the state of Florida. Like, you've been here for the past 3 years. We've really been attacked, and you're just now realizing that we've been attacked, which just goes to show you, like, he's not in alignment with us, and they're out of touch. And I mean, even his wife's comments about me illustrate that they are out of touch because of picking on me because of my attire. You felt that my attire wasn't professional enough and my shoes weren't professional enough when I look like everyday Floridians. Doesn't make any sense to
Yeah,
me.
that is such a tone deaf. Like I couldn't believe when I read about that.
just for the listener, so because the listener might be missing context here. So Rachel Vindman, who is Alexander Vindman's wife, went on a full meltdown post on Threads. I think it was on Threads,
Yeah.
basically saying that, I'm not gonna like quote it verbatim, but basically accusing Angie of dressing unprofessionally and suggesting that she buy better shoes. And obviously, immediately deleted it when people were like, "What the fuck are you doing? This post is both sexist, classist, and racist."
Triple play, real triple play there.
Triple hit.
Yeah.
And it's just
And
a crazy way to
she
conduct
stated,
yourself.
right, she was stating that I was personally attacking Vindman, and I'm like, I'm attacking his record of being a candidate that does not show up to meetings, that runs away from questions, that is unwilling to debate, that has not been in certain communities. That is not attacking him personally. That is attacking him as a candidate. And not even attacking, but actually just calling him out for what's actually happening.
Yeah, I mean, like, the idea that the Republican the Republicans in the Senate are going to be softer and nicer than that, or like that facing down scrutiny from the Trump DOJ, or from the Trump White House over the course of the next like 2 years, maybe longer. Like you can't handle that. I mean, come on, man. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, you melt under the pressure of that.
Yeah. Many of my detractors and his supporters are saying things like, I am too forward thinking. And they are saying I'm too forward thinking because I want to push for Medicare for all, because I want to push for universal childcare. And they're like, well, she only has 2 years. It's a special election, and the main thing is standing up to Trump. I'm like, yeah, we need to stand up to Trump, and like we need to address these issues that are causing Floridians to not afford childcare, not afford healthcare, all the things. And we can do both. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. We're Americans.
Right, and it's like the saying goes, right? The best defense is a good offense. So, like, as a political movement,
I would agree.
To truth, right? Like, we need to posit our own ideas, our own policies, our own like political agenda for people, and a lot of these candidates just don't have that.
So one last question, Angie. I wanted to get your reaction to something that progressive journalist David Sirota had said recently. He had written about how there is a non-zero chance that the National Democratic Party and its donors will decide to abandon or sabotage more populist, anti-establishment Democratic nominees if they were to win their primaries and kind of like come out on top and go in towards the general election. He also said that that a lot of people in that faction would rather that those kind of nominees lose, even if it means losing the Senate, losing governorships, because they threaten the Democratic Party and the way that they make money. And I compare that with like a lot of the comments you've been making, which are true. And this recent report in the New York Times from the author of the Democratic Autopsy of 2024, where he claimed that they sort of left out this chapter that he mentioned. This guy's name is Paul Rivera, a chapter where he said that the most senior strategists in the Democratic Party are, quote, financially secure, making it possible for most of them to misunderstand the mood and practicalities facing everyday Americans, and that there's this emergent class of Democratic operatives and consultants, something we talk about on this show a lot, the consultant class, the consultant cartel, who are becoming, quote, generationally wealthy thanks to the money that's getting spent, the money that comes when you adhere to the Democratic, sort of status quo, and it feels like you probably have a lot to share about that. Like, you felt the pressure of that, and I wonder, when you hear that, when you read about that, like, what do you think? Does that ring true to you? That a lot of these people are kind of like out of touch.
That is absolutely true. They are so out of touch. I have led the largest statewide independent expenditure before, which is meaning like we ran campaigns that in support of candidates statewide. Like, we were the reason that Andrew Gillum got over the finish line for the primary, right? Like, we ran an aggressive campaign. I was the organizing director at the time for the Win Justice campaign. We knocked on doors, we had conversations, but we didn't spend money on consultants. We didn't spend money on, like, all these huge media buys. We went and invested in organizers who went out and talked to people and knocked on doors and made phone calls, right? And that didn't make them rich. And they don't like that. They want to say, oh no, y'all are taking money away from the party. That's why we're losing. But the party keeps losing even if they have money. And that's because they're not talking to people. They're only getting people richer. And I also want to say, like, Florida politics, there's an article that just came out yesterday, and they're talking shit about my report. They're like, why did you spend over 54%? You spent 54% on salaries. I have organizers. I'm not spending money on fucking consultants and all these media buys. Like, we're actually going out talking to people. I looked at Alex Vindman's report. He's flying everywhere. He's renting vehicles and moving staff down. There's a reason he has to move staff down here to Florida, because people don't know who he is, right? And no one is motivated to work on his campaign, so they had to go get people from outside of the state. And like, my people are state folks. And I want to say, like, even though he's a veteran, the amount of veterans that have come up to me and have stated that they voted for me and they're endorsing me is, like, amazing. And I'm so excited about it. And it's like, people know that I'm just a regular everyday person who does not call AAA when her tire goes flat. She just goes ahead and, like, changes it herself, right? I'm a regular everyday person. We're driving my personal family vehicles because I need to, if I want people to invest in my campaign, I need to invest in my campaign as well and show people, like, that I'm all bought in, right? And so my opponent can't say the same thing. And that's why people are, like, flocking to us and we're gaining momentum.
Right, and I just want to reiterate, because I was going to mention the Florida Politics article when you were talking, and then you mentioned that it's just so absurd, right? That this fake political blog, which we've had an episode on this podcast about how they take money from candidates and corporate entities and PACs and etc. to pay to play,
quasi secretive, like, pay for play.
You can pay them to publish your press release, basically. But the state of political journalism is so fucked up that when a candidate who is spending, money on actual campaign staff to run statewide in Florida, the questions from the political media establishment is, wait, what's that all about? Because so many of these campaigns, like you said, Angie, they're spending millions and millions and millions of dollars running a skeleton operation, and they're doing, like, a $600,000 media ad buy, and 20% of those $600,000 goes straight to one consultant.
Exactly.
Crazy, and that's not what we question.
Exactly. It is absolutely insane. And, first of all, I'm not even paying the campaign, contractors, like the staff, the way, like, that they really should get paid, because we running scrappy, right? Like, they're like, we're doing this because we love you, Angie, and we believe in you, right? And so I'm just super excited that folks are all bought into this campaign. It's a people power campaign, and we're going to do whatever it takes to get us across the finish line.
Gerald, it's like the Florida politics reporters are like F. Murray Abraham in Inside Llewyn Davis, where he's like, I'm not seeing a lot of checks made out to cash to Christian Olvert here. I'm not seeing a lot of money here. I'm not seeing a lot of consultants here.
I I mean, the shade of it all, the shade. But no, it's like we send so many articles, so many press releases, and give them so much information about what's going on with the campaign. The only time they publish something from me is when it was an endorsement from Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, because I believe like they are anti-Muslim on that blog, right? Like they do not. And I asked them, I said, "Oh, this is strange. This is the first endorsement that you are reporting on." And they were like, "Well, that's because it's federal. It was a federal endorsement, and that's why." But they haven't said anything about Congressman Maxwell Frost endorsing me or Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley endorsing me.
Right.
No, they went after the racist dog whistles, and also like the ones the staffers that they brought up on my FEC report, because there was a few issues with like the importing, and so it just said into it, and my compliance team didn't catch it. They just uploaded it, and so they came back and added everybody's names. There were a few names missing, but the only two that they included were the guy that is over the Progressive Caucus, who we hired after they endorsed me, right? Like, and then a Palestinian American activist here in the state. And so it's just so disrespectful. It's so anti-Muslim. It is so anti-Gen Z and anti-progressive. And it's wild what Peter Schorsch will do for some money.
Yeah. Yeah, we've talked about that before on this show. It's almost like you can reverse engineer who their customers are by looking at the content that they do and be like, so I guess they got a nice little few dollars to write about that today. But
you will never you won't see it on people's campaign reports, because they're paying consultants who then come around and pay Peter Schorsch. So I think that's important to like lift up.
Yeah. So our guest today was Representative Angie Nixon from Jacksonville. She's trying to be your next senator here in the Sunshine State. She's got the Why Are We Like This endorsement. What's that, Tomas?
Soon to be next year.
Soon to be.
Yes.
Remember, visit her at angienixon.com. There you can learn more about the campaign, how to donate, how to be a part of it, and how to chip in and help. Representative Nixon, thanks for joining us again.
Thank you for having me, y'all. I really appreciate it.